Good evening and welcome. Tonight we will be going over the history and geography of Blantyre in Malawi. But first, before we get started, I just want to ask very humbly to give me a little thumbs up just right now before you fall asleep or click away, because African countries get the least amount of views and attention on my channel. Notice that on other geography ASMR channels as well. Malawi is one of those countries that does not get a lot of attention on the channel. So if you could, please just hit the little thumbs up button real quick, just to try to boost this video a little more than it normally would. Because small countries like Malawi don't really get a lot of clicks and views. So I'd appreciate that. Thank you. Malawi is located technically within the African Great Rift Valley, in particular in the African Great Lakes region, with this big old lake here, Lake Malawi, or as it's known in Mozambique, Lake Nyasa. Depending where you are, it's one of those places, depending where you are in the world, that's what you call it. And we'll talk about why that is and its history in a bit. I'm going to show you on the tablet when we go to Google Earth the African Great Lakes region and how that pertains to the Great Rift Valley. So just hold that thought. Blantyre is part of Malawi's Shire Highlands, a series of hills and mountains that are really quite spectacular, to be honest. They're really pretty to see on Google Earth. And I'm sure you might be wondering, especially if you're British or Scottish in particular, what in the world is going on? Why is it called Blantyre? Why is it the Shire Highlands? Why does it sound so Scottish? Well, we'll talk about that in history as well. Hold that thought too, please. There are quite a few mountains surrounding the city of Blantyre. We're going to look at two of them on Google Earth because they have really good slideshows. One of them is Michiru, and the other is Soche. You'll see one. Actually, will come up in history a bit. But yeah, we're going to look at those two in particular on Google Earth. And you can see Blantyre Blantyre District. Yeah, Blantyre District. Every place I'm talking about this week has a different name for their administrative division, so I'm trying not to get them mixed up. District. It's pretty small, so there's not much else to say besides that. There are many rivers that flow through, but yeah, that's pretty much it. Let's talk about the history of this little tiny region and this little tiny country. So I'm sure that people have been living here for ages, but the first real organized division of people I found here was the Malawi Kingdom, which began its reign in this area around the year 1480. The kingdom stretched all the way out to the Atlantic coast here, you can see it over here. It was pretty massive, a very large trading community, since it was kind of in the middle of so many large trading centers here in southern Africa. One of the more prominent ethnic groups in the kingdom, which is the most prominent ethnic group here in Blantyre, is the Manganja. They would have migrated from the Congo region, kind of up here, during the 1600s into the Shire Highlands. Today these people are mostly Christian, but many of them still practice traditional beliefs and ceremonies, rituals, things like that. The other very large ethnic group in this region would be the Yao. They migrated from the eastern coast here in the 1800s. The Yao are mostly Islamic, and that is due to their connections with Zanzibar, which is just a bit up there. The largest trading network on the east coast of Africa, especially in this period of history. They were actually Zanzibar was actually part of Oman up in the Arabian Peninsula, way up there. So they had connections with the Islamic world. So the Yao were predominantly Islamic. The Malawi kingdom fell apart in the late 1800s. It was pretty much done by the 1890s, and that was due to quite a few things. And one of them was the Mfakane. What is the Mfakane? It was a vast movement of people, mainly from the south and southeast here, going up the African continent. And why were they traveling? Because of the Zulu, particularly during the time of Shaka Zulu. He came in with a vengeance, started conquering land. The people there fled, and many hundreds of thousands of people had to leave their ancestral homes and flee north, because there's really no other direction you can go if you're in South Africa. You head north. So it was a very large, very sudden displacement of many different people groups. Heading up into this kingdom at the time, that can throw a lot of wrenches in your plans. Not to mention at that time, European influence in this area was steadily growing and growing and growing. You've got the Portuguese over here. You've got the British up here and down there. Actually kind of all around. You've got the Belgians up there, but that's another story. Many different European influences coming in and shaking things up economically, politically, religiously. Just slowly but surely led to the collapse of the kingdom and the takeover of, in this case, would be the British. But let's step back for a bit and talk about David Livingstone, I presume. David Livingstone was a Scottish missionary, and he came from a missionary group in Scotland down here into Central Africa, and he would meet with some random people group, talk to them about religion, and they would say, well, you should talk to the people in the next town over. So he'd go over there, talk to them, and they'd say, well, you should go to the people a bit farther south. So he'd go there, and slowly but surely he started making travels across Central and northern southern Africa here. He was the first European to see Mosi-oa-Tunya, or as he named it, Victoria Falls. I don't know if I can get it in shot here. Let me see, right? Sorry for the squeaky chair. Right here. This is the book, Mosi-oa-Tunya, Victoria Falls, and you can see they named the town they built there after Livingstone. He explored all the way down the Zambezi River, heading to the coast. This would be in like the 1840s. Throughout the 1850s, he would backtrack up and head up this way. And as he arrived here, in what's now the Shire Highlands, it reminded him a lot of home. And so that was what it was referred to. He knew that the lake up here was called Nyasa by the local people, so he named this region Nyasa Land. And it stayed that way until Malawi's independence, and they changed their name to Malawi, which is a word that means flames, which is great. It's a great name. So once, he got the wheels in motion promoting Christianity throughout the region here, the Church of Scotland missionary groups came down to the areas he explored and started to build missions. And when they came here in 1876, they named it after his birthplace, Blantyre, in Scotland. In 1878, Blantyre became the base of the African Lakes Corporation, which is like how colonization always seems to start in like British and Dutch. I guess the French did it too. Regions of the world, they would come and be like, we're a company. And it would slowly but surely become the government, right? Very true here in Malawi. This was a big trading center, the like capital of what would eventually become the Protectorate of Nyasaland was over here in Somba, right there. So this was an important, like the next big place nearby, right? Blantyre would actually become Malawi's first city in 1895 when it was declared a municipality. And I would say the rest of Malawi's history pertains more to other parts of Malawi. Lilongwe, the capital cities, right up here. This would garner far more attention during the 20th century. Same with Somba. But you can see right here, this is a town called Limbe, and this was the neighboring town to Blantyre, right? I guess like the suburb at the time. It wasn't called that then, but that's pretty much what it was. Limbe was merged with Blantyre in 1956, so it's one cohesive area there. You'll see that on Google Earth. The only other real history that I found here, or not so much history, but important events in recent times, was in 2023 when Cyclone Freddy hit this region of the world. At that time, Blantyre was going through a major cholera outbreak. The city was already dealing with that issue when a cyclone comes through and creates some devastating mudslides on some of those mountains we mentioned. And about 100 people or so lost their lives here in Blantyre, and around 11,000 were displaced. It's pretty much all healed now, but as we're going to see on Google Earth, you can still see the path of destruction from those mudslides because it was very recently. It's not 100% cleaned up. And hopefully it will soon, because from Google Earth it doesn't look very stable. But I think what I should do is actually show it to you on Google Earth. So why don't we hop over to my tablet and check it out for ourselves. Here we are in Blantyre district. But we're of course going to start by zooming out so you can see exactly where we are in the world. You may not know where Malawi is located, and that's totally fine. It's a pretty obscure, tiny country here, surrounded by some big giants, right? Here is the African continent. Malawi is down here. It's a very narrow country there. Can you see it? Now, it's pretty easy to find on a globe because, again, you have to look for the Great Lakes region. So let's talk about some African geography here. I feel like I mentioned the Rift Valley every time we talk about Ethiopia, Djibouti, even a bit of Somalia, right? But we never really discuss it farther down from that because the rift is actually all the way here. Can you see it from above? So, the continent of Africa is being ripped apart. Slowly but surely, this chunk of Africa here is going to become one big island. It won't happen for tens of millions of years, so there's no reason to worry, but you can see the process of it happening. The continent coming apart. So it's pretty evident. Like I say up here, Djibouti, Ethiopia, you can see that big crack coming through. It creates a lot of geothermal events, volcanoes, earthquakes, things like that. But where it's ripping apart here creates these massive lakes. You can see the three biggest are Lake Victoria, the largest lake in Africa, Lake Tanganyika, and Lake Malawi. There are loads of others if you just zoom in. You can find all kinds of lakes, right? Lake Natrone, I would say, is one of them too. There's lakes over here, all throughout. Lake Natrone is up here. Not Lake Natrone, Lake, what's it called? Lake Turkana. Lake Turkana. Lake Natrona is up here somewhere, but Lake Turkana is the big one, my bad. But yeah, a result, you can just clearly see that line there coming through, ripping apart the continent. There's more lakes down here in Malawi as the continent tears in two. So that's what we mean talking about the Great Rift Valley and the Great Lakes region of Africa. Now let's zoom in and look at some of the landscape here. There isn't really much in the surrounding district here to look at. It's mostly farmland. Let me just show you a quick zoom in. Can see all the waterways going through. It's all very tiny little towns and things. Can see all the little churches and mosques popping up. But let's go to the city. You can see all the mountains surrounding it, right? You can see all of the hills here. But let's start down here in the center. Let's see. I have to remember where all the things I wanted to show you is. I want to say, there we go. Museum of Malawi, that's what I want to show you, of course. The Chichiri Museum, or Museum of Malawi. There's lots of old vehicles outside. Old traditional home, kind of looks like a South African rondeville, but you have like this porch area outside. That's pretty neat. Old trains, of course. The British built many different train systems throughout Malawi. Here's the fire brigade truck with the big ladder in the back. Some farming equipment, some weapons as well. Good map of national parks and game reserves. And some cool art. Old artifacts. I wish I could read the rest of this sign. Something for instilling values. But if that's the ticket kiosk center, that's pretty clever. Some incredible costumes here. Headdresses. At the front of the train there. But yeah, pretty interesting. Oh, these are neat. These are what women would wear on their heads so they could balance big baskets on top. This, to me, I can't really read the plaque, but it looks like a meteorite. And some more. That looks like a big, like harpoon almost. Something or other. We can see. Goodness, I don't remember. It popped up before, but I can't remember what part of the town it's in. Let's see if I can find it. I should have double checked before I started filming. Of course, I'm trying to ignore it showing me concert halls and cemeteries, right? I thought it was over here somewhere. Here, let me cut and find it. Alright, that took ages to find something that I just want to show you for like 2 seconds. It wasn't listed. I had to type it, and hunt in this neighborhood to find it. I don't know why it wasn't showing it to me. And the first time I researched this town, it was the very first thing that popped up. Now it's gone. But this is the Mandala House. This was the first house, not just in Blantyre, but the first house built in Malawi. Now, of course, I feel like all the pictures are going to be different. Some spaghetti. Get some good food there. Let's get some souvenirs. Looks like it's Christmas time. Get a drink. Yeah. Interesting. I wonder why it wasn't popping up. Literally the first time I typed in Blantyre, that was huge there. Look at all the... I had to search this whole neighborhood for it. Interesting. Anyway. Let's check out these mountains over here. We're going to start over here in Michiru, which is my favorite character in Sailor Moon. Michiru Nature Sanctuary. So you can see this big blob of a mountain up here, right? Look at that. There's some cool artwork around here. Some little monkey friends. Yeah, look at that. It's kind of scary. It's kind of eerie. Nature Sanctuary. Poking a stick at the monkeys. Wildlife and Environmental Society of Malawi. Standing on top of the mountain. We'll look at that next. Lots of cool artwork here at this little sanctuary. Let's go to the tippy. Let's put it in 3D so you can see it. Get a better perspective. So you can really see just how mountainy this place is, how hilly it is, right? Let's go to the very top. Michiru Peak. Waving the flag there. Enjoying the views on top of the mountain. Look at that. You can look how far out you can see. Posing on your hike. Very stylish. Yeah, it seems like, based on how they're dressed, that it's not a very bad hike. Maybe you can do it in like just a day. It doesn't look terribly difficult to do, which is kind of neat. Look at, they all came up to enjoy the view on top of the mountain. There's the rest rock. Take a break like these guys are doing. Bring some water. Yeah, it looks like a pretty easy hike. That's pretty neat. Look, they're very much enjoying themselves up in the nature. Very nice. See this slideshow. If we can see a little bit more. Nope, okay. A lot of places here don't have pictures, which is very unfortunate. Then if we head down to the south here, like over here. I have to remember where it is also. Maybe not this one. Oh, but this one. This is the one. So this is Soche Mountain that I mentioned to you. Let's go to the top of this mountain. Enjoy the views from this side. Oh, look, you can see the other mountains. It's probably Michiru, right? In the distance. I watched one travel vlog here that was like, every direction there's mountains. Soche Mountain campsite. Go camping up here. It looks very arid, doesn't it? Kind of like shrubs and cacti up here. Kind of different. Look at that baby. Cute. Yeah, they all seem like pretty simple hikes. Looking at how everyone's dressed and what gear they bring. Little compass up there. Little Chris Charles was there. Thanks, little Chris Charles. It's interesting there. Some beads. But here you can see part of the mudslide area, right? This was part of the devastation from Cyclone Freddy. You can see that this house is all bashed up, and you can see from above the mudslides here. So I don't think there's a slideshow here. No, but we can look through and see how it just came through this neighborhood and wiped everything. You can see how densely packed the homes are, right? Now this is just all gone, and look how far deep it still goes to this day, and there's still rocks and things right there in the neighborhood. Look at the big old rock right there. Very devastating path of destruction there. And then on this side, you can just see that landslide ripping through this neighborhood. Look how many rocks are still there. Don't know when these photos were taken by the satellites, but yeah, still bits of destruction. But you can see, healed for the most part. There's some banged up houses still there. These rocks coming through this neighborhood. How absolutely terrifying. But yeah, you would hope that soon they'd be able to build some landslide fences, places like that, so that this wouldn't happen again. Because, you know, it could happen any rainy season, right? Something else I wanted to show you about Blantyre, because I was reading about the different types of living conditions here. You can see over here is Limbe, right? Limbe Cathedral's over there. Let's take a look at Limbe. I haven't looked at Limbe Cathedral. Why not? It's pretty inside. just looking at the differences in homes, let's look over here. This is a good example. Very suburban, right? Very green. They all have yards and fences. Nice big homes. And then you look at an area like down here, like where we were looking at. Much more crowded, right? Up on the hillside there. Very crowded and compact. And then I think up here is a good place too to really show you. Look at just how busy it is. So many different homes just packed in there. So you can imagine that these homes are not like the most stable, right? Like the most sound constructionally sound. You know what I'm trying to say? So there are definitely wealthy parts and poor parts of this city, right? You can see all the little businesses that people are running and their homes tagged there. And churches, of course. Yeah, I was reading about how some of the living conditions here are not very ideal. That comes with just many, many people living in a suburban area. I really forgot to mention, just remembered that this is like the kind of commercial capital of Malawi. Even to this day, it started off as a commercial site. It still is today, very much so. Cemeteries, if you don't know, if you tap on a certain type of place enough, it pops up like, I always like to show off the big houses of worship, so that's why you come up here, and all that it tags is churches and mosques. Now it's showing me like party halls and cemeteries by accident. I don't mean to see that, but here we are. So yeah, I think that's pretty much all I needed to show you. You can see the conservation areas down here, but it's not part of Blantyre district, unfortunately. And yeah, it kind of goes around the reserve. Let me put the borders back up so you can see. Oops, Blantyre district. It just dances like around kind of the more interesting natural areas. But that's okay, because we'll be back for sure. You'll see more. Here's another. I'm going to say lake, but I believe that's a river going to, or from, Lake Malawi. Or Lake Nyasa. So yeah, I forgot to mention too. I'll just say it here, that why some places still call it Lake Nyasa, because that's what it's been called for a long time. But when Malawi became independent, they wanted to shred all colonial names, right? Many countries down here did this, Zimbabwe being a famous one. So they officially changed the name to Lake Malawi instead of Lake Nyasa, since the name Nyasa is what they were called when they were colonized. They're trying to shed all those names, but I know Mozambique still calls it Lake Nyasa. I don't know about Tanzania. I think they do too. But here it's Lake Malawi, and yeah, that's what we'll call it today. But yeah, all those waterways coming through there. Malawi's an interesting little country. You should definitely look into it. If you're ever bored on Google Earth and want some place to explore, check out Malawi. Did you know that Lake Malawi has more fish than any other lake in the world? That's because it's full of very tiny fish. But nevertheless, they have that bragging right, the most fish out of any lake in the world. But that's where I'm going to leave you for tonight. So thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this style of content, please consider subscribing, and please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up and drop me a comment down below to help out with the algorithm. The algorithm is not very kind to African countries, and I don't think it should be that way at all. I feel like it should be promoting all these tiny places so that we can all learn more about it, right? But nevertheless, I hope that you found this video to be relaxing and educational, and I hope that you have a good